All right. Well, it looks like it is just a bit after 1 o'clock Mountain Time, which would be 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern, or noon Pacific. So let's get started. Well, welcome everyone. This is DES 104, uh, digital image editing, I think. Um, Sorry, I always giggle because this course used to be called Photoshop 1, and then it changed its name to be a bit more inclusive, and I can never quite remember what the new inclusive name is. But anyway, so yeah, so here I am. Hello, everyone. Welcome again. And yeah, we are in our second week of our 8th mod, and today is Tuesday, August 15th. So August 15th, whoa, halfway through the month, just about. I hope you guys are all having a good Tuesday or whatever day it happens to be, since we have very few students who have shown up, which means we are going to have very many students who are watching our video. So want to know that you feel welcome and ready to engage as well. All right, so I'm going to stop my video, since as we all know, I'm extremely distracted when I have to watch myself talk. So let's stop that and jump back into here. So here's an agenda. We are actually not going to be doing this quite. This is more our agenda for last week, but it's okay. We are going to go over a couple things that are a bit similar, so we'll just keep this up. So basically where we're headed today is that we are going to do review to begin with. So we are going to go over some things that we talked about last week, some kind of facts and information bits, which had to do specifically with the assessment for week 1. So we're going to kind of do that and review. Then we're going to keep on reviewing, and we're going to do a little bit of a critique kind of feedback session on assignment 1, which was the Photoshop wallpaper that got turned in. And then we are going to jump into Photoshop again. We're going to talk about the assignment this week, which is doing some kind of photo editing, photo manipulation. And then we are going to conclude things with, well, we might switch these. We probably will switch these. We're going to talk about Type on a Path, which is the assessment for this week, and kind of how to think about that as well. So review, assignment, assessment, and it should be good. All right, so let's jump into our classroom, which is here, and check things out. Just get oriented again. So our week 2 kind of learning objectives. We're going to look at using some different selection tools. We're going to look at kind of layers, masking, that sort of thing. Color preparation for different outputs. Some interesting stuff, again, about kind of manipulating and moving colors around. So where we're headed. A couple of things I did want to point out. I feel this is a little bit, we'll see if this really is going to make sense. But there's been lots of kind of just issues with saving things in Photoshop, kind of navigating through the assignment, especially last week. So I'm a little bit concerned that we're not getting a lot of watching on the live sessions. So I want to just kind of go over how you access those again, so we make sure that everybody knows kind of how to find the information that you need for each week, where that's located, and just kind of how to go about that. It's a little bit of a tricky thing because if you are watching this live session, you don't really need to see this because you know how to navigate to it. And if you don't know how to navigate to it, you're probably not going to see this live session. But it's okay. We're going to kind of err on the side of err on the side of hopefulness, that everybody can watch this. And yeah, and maybe I think I can find a creative way to get people this recording, even if you may not know where the live session info is, and then kind of go from there. So we shall see. But yeah, so anyway, live session. So this is the home page. You got to find the picture that says live session. And this may be slightly different because this whole scheme has been updated recently. So it's the guy looking very happy, and Zoom as well. And oh, welcome! Glad to have a student. Good to see you. But yeah, so live session. Click on it, and then you're going to have to scroll down. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because there's kind of all this stuff of like, here's the recordings, attend, here are the times, all these sorts of things. So here's times of things. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, always at 1 p.m. Mountain, we're together. Here's how you get in. And then when you get all the way here, you'll see recorded sessions. And so the things that I lead on Tuesdays, which is where I do the demo and such, are the second one. So it's going to say instructor-led live session, and then there's going to be a link. So you can see there's not one for week 2 yet because we're obviously in it. And then week 3 or 4, nothing's there. So, excuse me, these are pre-recorded things, so you need to watch these as well. But I'm just focusing on this because this is kind of where I was seeing a couple issues. So once you get to this spot, you could click here, but it's going to play in a very small format. So I'd recommend that you actually click here, and then it's going to take you to, it's going to take you to me talking. But yeah, it's going to actually take you to a YouTube site, and then you can see everything that's here. And just heads up, I go over everything, and it's pretty kind of step by step, pretty granular. So make time for this, and make time for this first and foremost. You will not regret it. And generally, if it seems like it's a complicated assignment, it probably isn't as complicated as it may seem. But we have to kind of walk through it together. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm here, certainly. So make sure that you can engage as much as possible. All right, so that is the live session, and you just have to scroll a little bit. It will be there, but it does take a little bit of maneuvering. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to go over quickly. I don't think so. Okay, so let's jump back into we don't need to do this. Back into the review. So we're gonna just do, like I said, kind of lightning round review. If you are, oh, no worries. If you are a student who is here in class, and I ask a question, you can feel free to type your response in the chat box. Or if you're, watching via video, make sure that you are also responding in some way. You can think about the answer. This is something that, the more you engage with it mentally, the more you kind of take that initiative, take that step, the more that you are going to grow and kind of, take this knowledge in and not just have it be, something that you repeat, but something that actually makes a difference. Okay, so what is Photoshop? First thing, we have this very long definition of what Photoshop is. Kind of the most important thing, a raster graphics editor. So Photoshop works most of the time in raster capability. Photoshop, the word has become a verb, as in to Photoshop an image. I will say that it's a verb that I use on a fairly regular basis, mostly because I was actually just away with my family on a short little vacation, and we were taking lots of family pictures, and the whole running joke became like, oh, it's okay, Auntie Ia, who's me, can Photoshop these pictures. They don't look great, so lots of fun. And indeed, I do end up Photoshopping a lot of our family pictures because when you have as many nieces and nephews as I do, inevitably nobody's eyes are all open at the same time or smiling at the same time or whatever, sort of thing. So just think you guys too can do it. All right, so how does it work? So basically, we have this sort of setup. For those of you who are here in class, do you remember what are these little squares of color called? What are they? Yep, exactly. These are pixels. So in Photoshop, every picture is made up of millions, literally, millions and millions of pixels, which is how you kind of see what you see, and also how it works being digital, because a picture in itself, and you just snap it with a camera, well, when you snap it with a camera and develop it by film, is not inherently able to be manipulated on screen, just because it's made from ink and paper. But when you have images that are made of pixels, suddenly, because they are these little, I was about to give away an answer, because they break down the picture into more kind of usable chunks of information, then they can be manipulated digitally. So images are made of pixels, and pixels are basically known as squares of color. So it's like every image that becomes a digital image is essentially kind of like a quilt of pieces. So all the colors kind of come together and then form, when you zoom out, form the complete whole. So it's a pretty cool thing, this whole pixel, squares, pictures, raster kind of integration. Okay, so if you have completed the assessment from week 1, this information will seem extra relevant. If you haven't completed the assessment from week 1, pay close attention. This information will be increasingly relevant as soon as you take the assessment. I know we still have a couple stragglers. It's 50 points. It would really help so many people. So if you haven't taken it, at least just give it a shot and see what happens. All right, so what is this? Does anyone remember what this is? And if you're watching via video, you can remember too. All right, looks like toolbar. Yes, exactly. This is the Photoshop toolbar. So toolbar, you can select most tools not only with the mouse, but also with shortcut keys. Does anyone remember, how do you see what the shortcut key is that you can select the tool with? There's a kind of an easy way to do it. This is kind of like toolbar 2.0. Let's see. Hover over the tool. Exactly. Yeah, if you just kind of like gently hover over the tool, you don't click it, Photoshop will tell you what the tool is, and then in parentheses, there'll be whatever the keyboard shortcut is as well. Okay, so here's one more thing. Not on the quiz, but good stuff to know. These little tools, the icons of the tools, also have a black triangle in the lower right-hand corner. So what does that mean, that black triangle business? What else do we know when we see that? Exactly, nested over other tools. Yep, because the toolbar has a finite number of things it can show. So because of that, it kind of nests other tools underneath. So especially this week when we're doing the type on a path, you will need to, really use your nesting capability to kind of get at some other tools. Okay, so what is this? What is this that we're looking at? Something that's a little bit admittedly blurry, but yep, exactly. This is the layers box tab, layers panel. generally. So layers panel. So Photoshop works on the kind of the principle of layers. So every time you put something new into your Photoshop document, you actually, or Photoshop actually creates a new layer for you. So you, so you kind of stay organized and kind of keep things in a neat and tidy manner. Okay, so layers panel. Layers are selections in the image that can be manipulated independently. In a sense, they are stacked on top of one another. So they're a bit like if you have a stack of papers, if you have a stack of books, you only see what's on top type deal. So you want to kind of make sure that you really know how to kind of move and manipulate your layers so that you always have what you want to have where you want to have it, so that it all kind of can come together. All right, so if you want to put a multi-layered image into your Photoshop image without losing all the layers, use File Place. This is something that may or may not have any relevancy to you for a bit, but at some point it will make sense. But File Place, preserve all the layers. If you make a mistake in Photoshop, does anyone remember what is the magic kind of keyboard shortcut, kind of keyboard command for you to do? There's two keys that you push and you go, whew, glad I dodged that. Okay. The keys are Command Z. So hold on the Command key, hold on the Z. That basically does an undo. And as you can see this, no worries. You can undo lots and lots and lots of times, basically over 3. So Photoshop, well, and Illustrator, all the all the Adobe products, they do eventually have a time where you can't undo, but you can undo a whole lot, and it's quite nice because inevitably sometimes you make a mistake, and then you can just Command Z, and you don't have to you don't have to get so uptight about it. You can always kind of go back. Okay, so if you need help in Photoshop, always good to ask me, or go to the Student Success Center, check in with our learning coach, but also check out the great help menu, because Photoshop does have quite a comprehensive help menu, and it should kind of see you through. All right, so last but not least, whenever you're dealing with Photoshop, it's always very, very important to stay calm, because just as we said last week, you guys really are kind of learning a new language. You are learning the language of software, and it's tricky business. Like you kind of can get your head around it, but like anything, it's going to be quite overwhelming, and you're going to make a whole bunch of mistakes, and you're going to forget how to do stuff, and you're going to feel like what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is terrible. Those are all completely natural feelings. So you just kind of have to kind of stay calm even in the midst of the difficulty of learning. And eventually it will click. And it's a really cool kind of, it's a cool feeling once you are able to look at something and be like, hey, I actually know how to do something. So, hopefully that will happen over the course of this course. But if it doesn't, just know that you are laying the foundation. And if you are kind of committed to practicing, to staying on top of things with this class, then you will you will find and learn, and it will be a good thing overall. All right, so we reviewed content. Next thing we're going to do is just review some submissions that came in for week 1, for assignment 1. And let's do this as read mode. For a couple things to kind of point out, let's actually just jump into what assignment 1 was. If you still haven't turned in assignment 1, I am very, very, very open to, sorry, I'm just looking at how many are graded. I'm very, very open to late work, so please, make time to turn it in. It's a really super simple assignment, especially if you watch the lecture recording, watch my own demo. So basically what you're doing is creating a desktop wallpaper, and these are the requirements for this assignment. So one thing that I just saw continuously almost is that people would either be turning in either a JPEG version or a PSD version. So the assignment was to actually turn in both. So if you were like, I think I did it fine, why did I get such a low grade? Chances are you did not turn it in as both formats. So so the gradebook is current as of, I think as of this morning actually, if not last night, kind of one of those things. But just go in and check to kind of see what you did, because there were many of you that I was like, I want to give them 100%. Can't, because they didn't turn in everything. So go back in and see if that was you, and then see how you can kind of change and update. So I am very, very open to you doing like resubmissions until you get it right. So know that that's always an option, and in fact I actually encourage it, because that's kind of how design works. So kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so the other thing too that seemed to be a bit of an issue, 4 inches high by 9 inches wide. There was a lot of kind of deviant sizing. I wasn't really a stickler for that, but just know that you kind of have to pay attention to the sizing. It's because just practically things need to be a certain size to be usable. And so if there's a size requirement, that really is kind of it's not a suggestion, it's kind of a mandate. So in the future, just kind of be a bit careful that you are following the sizing. I had a couple people to turn in things that were like 3 or 4 gigabytes in size. And that's a really, really big file. And that's, something that you would probably not be able to submit very many places for a client, just because it's huge, literally. So you always kind of want to, just double check your sizing, and just kind of make sure that things are looking good. So wallpaper, 4:9, color, and JPEG, and native, PSD, and it should be good. All right, so jump back in here and jump up. And so, yeah, so the heart of this assignment was kind of just using a variety of different kind of tools and kind of playing around a bit in Photoshop just to, kind of get comfortable, demystify the interface, that sort of thing. So we're going to do a little bit of critique now, and just kind of an idea. As designers, when we say critique, basically that's kind of like constructive feedback. It's constructive criticism, but not criticism as in like, you're terrible, this is never gonna, whatever, like all that negative stuff. We don't need to do that. There's enough of that everywhere. But so in critique, we always look at kind of what's going on, and we really think about how a project is meeting the objectives that were set out for it. So is it, the right size? Does it have the right elements? Is it communicating a clear message? Are things like, if there is type, is it readable? If there are colors, do they feel like they're appropriate? So whenever we think about projects and kind of giving that level of feedback, we always think not just like, do I like it, do I not like it? But even more, we think, is it effective? Is it working? And if so, why? And then if not, why is that as well? So we kind of have to think kind of critically, kind of think constructively. And as a designer, I think it's never easy to receive critique on your own work, mostly because, you put yourself into it. But if you can learn how to really give good critique, and even more receive good critique, your work will be so much stronger for it, because as designers, we're very close to what we do. So we tend to kind of not be able to see things, as objectively as we could, perhaps. So really having the critique process just helps us kind of see our work in a new light, and you know, kind of see how we can shift and change and adjust. So yes, that's critique. Okay, so here's our first one. So if you are here in the chat box, I'd love for you to chime in as well. So yeah, what do you feel like this is working overall? Showing off some Photoshop tools. Yes, no, why, what's working, what's not, that sort of thing. And you guys can participate to whatever level you want to, since I know there are few of you in number, so I don't want to, you know, overwhelm you with everything. But yeah, feel free to chime in. Okay, so I would say from my perspective, I feel like this is a really interesting kind of photo. I actually have no idea what's been done to it to give it that kind of fractured, well, I have a couple of guesses what's been done to it to give it that, excuse me, kind of fractured, fragmented look. But I think it's interesting. I think it kind of has a cool feel to it. I think the one thing that's kind of immediately standing out to me is that it just feels like it's the wrong size. Oops. See if I can get the ruler to show up. Yeah. So this is quite large. So this is not the good old 4x9. And the orientation is a bit more of a square. So if this is your piece, you know, it's a cool idea, but really think about how you can just get it to fit in a slightly smaller, slightly more rectangular-ish overall orientation. And the other thing too, I'm not sold on the type. To me, it feels like this font choice is kind of the font choice of like weddings and invitations. This seems like it's a very hard-edged image. So I feel like, you know, something that was just a little bit more kind of solid and chunky in the type might be a better fit overall. But love the placement of the type, and I like just kind of the overall kind of composition effect as well. So I think that's working strongly. This kind of swirly thing that's always kind of pointing back this way. So, but yeah, interesting stuff. All right, well, we will move, I guess, through. So here's another one. This one is, in fact, 4 inches by 9 inches. So it's an interesting idea with the kind of wood paneling, kind of wood floor-ish thing going on. I think for me, what's a little bit distracting is kind of the different the ways the different words and phrases are positioned. So it seems like to me these feel a little bit kind of random and a little bit hard to read. So I think it'd be really cool if we had, you know, like oh, this is a terrible color. Let's get rid of that. We don't want to look at that. Let's make it white. So we had, you know, like stay grounded really big here, stay positive really big here, you know, keep your head up really big here. You know, so they just had a bit more kind of overall impact to them. So right now they feel like they're kind of just getting lost. But I want to see, you know, I want to see these positive messages. And maybe, you know, they're a more of a bold font as well. You know, maybe they're all caps. Maybe they're white, or maybe they're yellow, or maybe they're just something that's got a little bit more kind of standout power from the wood. So, but yes, I mean, it's interesting background, certainly a great message, but really think about, if this is your piece, how you can add some more kind of pop to it, so it feels, so it just feels a bit more kind of engaging overall. Oops. Okay, so here's another one. The sky is the limit. This is one that I know the student had said they couldn't quite get it to fit the square. So you can see here it is actually 4x9, which is great. I actually, if this is yours, I actually was able to open up Photoshop and just like nudge the picture over. And to do that, I used, here, let me just show you what I used. If I have a toolbar, which I should. Tools. So I use just this little move tool, and you just have to make sure that your layer is selected that you're going to move. So I selected the layer, I clicked on the move tool, and then I was able to just nudge it over, and it looked like there was enough space. So you always want to kind of keep that in mind as you're, as you're working. Is it covering as it should, or do you need to kind of nudge or shuffle or move or do something like that? This is nice though. I love the picture. I think it's such a, as student has said, pretty. I think it's such a pretty picture. What might be kind of cool, which you don't know how to do it yet, but you will soon, is if instead of having the type going kind of at the angle, if you really did have it, kind of do this. Woo, well, okay, if you had it curve, not curve and with a bend, because that would give it a really nice feel of like it's almost hugging, kind of almost hugging the tree. And that, that would be kind of cool as well, just so it would feel a little bit more connected. Let's see, love the use of color. Yeah, and what do you guys think too about the white against the purple? Do you think that's working a lot? Reminds you of a postcard? Yeah, for sure. And stands out, yeah, very well, easy to read. Yeah, this is a really good example of a contrast, kind of how the color reaches together. So you can see here, this one doesn't really have a lot of contrast because both of the colors are kind of the same tone, whereas this one you're like, whoa, there are those words. So it really, jumps out in a good way. All right, so here's another one. Oops, not quite 9 by 4 by 9, but it's okay. So never give up on your dreams. Again, an interesting kind of arrangement of letters and a butterfly-ish thing, which is pretty cool, and then some mountains and things. I think again with this one, I would say, which I don't think you guys really knew how to do this, so like, oh, why didn't you do this? But I think that if we arced it up kind of this way, the type would just stand out a lot better. So right now it's a little bit kind of getting lost at the bottom, and it kind of feels like it could be leading your eye this way, but I think even more if it was like kind of like the rainbow of type kind of impact, it would just come together and kind of guide your eye a bit more as well. And then this little butterfly, very cool. There's kind of some leaves in the corner. I think this, if we kind of repeated it a couple more places, so maybe like over here, maybe one over here as well, just kind of having like little sizing would really kind of lead your eye into the distance as well. So, just these little things to change, little things to think about, kind of positioning and such to see what might happen. Okay, so here's another one. This one really is 4 by 9, which is fabulous. I love the use of boxes in this. I think that it's really cool to see the different colors and to just see how the photo kind of adds to the overall mix of boxes and colors and stacking and that sort of thing. I think it would have been really cool to have, a word here or like a phrase here or something, just to kind of balance it out, or even a couple more of these little boxes, different colors. But yeah, overall, it's very nicely done. I like the idea and the balance, and I like the colors too. So I think it's a good piece. All right, so moving right along. Here's another one. Again, lots of little fairies and sparkles and type kind of moving around. This one says, believe in beauty. And I think it's really cool, and I like many parts of it. And I like many parts of it. I think that many parts of it are also working. But I think just a couple things that would make it stand out even more is just if we could find a way to better make these words pop out. So I like that it's so kind of like subtle and understated, because it's like fairies and twinkly things and gardens and you know, things that you kind of aren't so literal. You know, you kind of, they fade in and out. But I think that we have to make sure that we can actually see them as well, so that they have that kind of impact. So I feel like just making them a bit larger, so making the words a little bit larger, maybe even changing the color slightly, might just give it that little extra, kind of little extra pop of kind of being able to see it in a good way. Okay, so let's see the next one. This looks like this student has discovered type on a path, or at least some type warping tools, which is kind of a fun thing to see how they all are moving together. But yeah, I like the idea of the different type and kind of how it's rotating, how the colors are changing, that sort of thing. I think one thing that's a little bit tricky is that all of this is getting a little bit lost with the arc. So yeah, I think I would say kind of don't arc quite so much. Really think about how you can kind of just really make it show off, so that it's just a little bit easier to read overall. And then also really think about the contrast again with the background. So anytime you are using colored type on a colored photo, you have to kind of adjust a bit just to make sure that they're not getting too lost together. So, all right, here's another one. Oops, I can zoom out, maybe. Okay, love hurts. Oh, terrible message. Quite true, but terrible message, but very nicely done graphic overall. And this is one that, had we seen this in its native format in Photoshop, it's like 20 layers, because there's so much going on, which is perfect. I always feel like as soon as I see lots of layers happening, it means good stuff is on the horizon in many ways. But yeah, so interesting use of colors and glows and kind of all the digital parts of Photoshop that really kind of make it unique. One thing, again, I feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record, but I think that just the contrast and the type could be slightly fine-tuned, so that it would just be seen a bit more, but so it may be slightly more toward the like brighter kind of light neon pink, maybe a little bit of white in there type thing, but otherwise looks good. All right, so here's another one, In the Zone. Loving what's going on with these kind of triangles. So I feel like that's really cool. Somebody was playing with the layer blending modes, and I love playing with the layer blending modes, and I think it's a really fun way to bring a lot of interest with kind of minimal effort, so to speak. You can kind of just put colors on there and see what happens. So I'm happy to see that this was somebody who's playing around with this, and I think it's working. Excuse me, I think it's working quite well overall. All right, so here's another one. Again, interesting look to it with the overall gradients, and I really like how the text is just really jumping out against the yellow. I think the contrast is fabulous. One thing I will say is this this was a very large file, so we do want to be quite mindful that we're making things the right size. And this one was one I actually couldn't totally figure out, because it's only 9x4, but for whatever reason, there's a lot of pixel information that was in here, so it was a bit too download and upload, and then try to figure out as well. But overall, I think it looks really good, and I think it's working quite well. And I actually really like kind of the gradients and the way things are combining. Photoshop is fabulous at gradient usage. The other Adobe programs, not so much. But when you're in Photoshop, you know, feel free to jump on the gradient bandwagon in a whole bunch of ways, because it just does it so nicely. Yeah, you thought you used the right settings. Yeah, I couldn't figure out why it was so big. So we'll see. Yeah, but we'll see kind of what happens this week with any of your work. And maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe it was just a fluke. I know with gradients, sometimes that just puts in a lot of extra information to the file. So maybe that was it, but yeah, I'm impressed that Canvas, that you were able to upload it to Canvas, because I know that they're a little bit finicky sometimes about sizing, but it just must have taken a long time. But anyway, okay. All right, so here's another one. Speaking of gradients, this is very nice, but I don't see much going on other than the blue. So if this is your piece, you know, how can you add some shapes to it? How could you add a photo? How could you add some type? You know, what might you put here? You know, kind of seeing what other people have done. You know, how can you two be inspired? Because this is a good start, but this isn't really a completed piece. So it kind of needs a couple more elements to it. All right, so here's another one. 5 by 7, not quite the 8 by or 9 by 4 that we were looking for, but it does have some interesting feel with the stuff that's the Ohio State Pride. Kind of playing, it looks like, with layer styles, washing things out, moving things around, playing with a little Adobe stock, which is kind of fun. But yeah, the real challenge, I would say, is think about how you could convert this from 5 by 7 to 9 by 4. So it really is that kind of correct kind of size orientation overall. All right, so here's another one. This is one that I was a little perplexed by because it was just a JPEG that came in, and so with most of the other ones that I've shown you, I could see like kind of the layers and how it was all put together. So this one, I'm not really sure what's going on. So if this was yours, you will again notice that yeah, I gave you a little bit of feedback, but mostly I was like, wait, where's your layered file? Just because I want to make sure that you guys are setting these up in the correct ways, and that you're just kind of, that I'm not sensing any confusion in your native files. So that's kind of why I'm a little bit particular about it, because I want to make sure that when you guys are starting, that you're starting on a good foot, and that you're not, you know, everybody's going to make mistakes, but hopefully that I can, you know, kind of streamline your process as much as possible. So super cute, but I still would love to see the native as well. And it's also not quite 4 by 9, but it's okay. All right, here's another one. Love the mountains, as do I. Again, I think this one's, you know, super working. And again, a testament to kind of how easy this could be. You know, it's a picture, it's some type, it's a shape. And if you are able to cleverly combine those things in, you know, the right spots, the right places, you really do come up with something that's pretty amazing. So I think this is, yeah, this is working. My only comment, love the mountains, could be a bit larger, increase the love. But otherwise, you know, it's got a nice flow and overall feel to it. Okay, another one. Everybody look away. This one we won't look at for very long because it's completely disgusting. That said, it is totally working. So it's kind of fun to see like just all the different elements kind of be over the top. I am all for you guys going over the top with everything because I think that this is, you know, this is a class where you can really play. And so this one is feeling very playful, if you can say that with zombies and blood and barbed wire. But yeah, kind of the combo itself is working quite nicely. All right, so here's another one. Trains, swimming pools, hearts, and dolphins. Interesting combination, but kind of fun as well. So it looks good, all the different layering pieces and bits. Couple things, just make sure that you are designing within the right orientation. Again, this looks like it's a 5x7, not quite a 4x9. And then also, I do like the idea that things are kind of an overlay, but sometimes it's good too to have something that is like 100% kind of just a normal, because everything on here is tending to feel a little bit washed out. So how can you, kind of make something feel like it's like the main focal point, and then, make the other pieces kind of step back, step down, that sort of thing. So. Let's see, the dolphin has an image in it. I think it's a crane. Oh yeah, it does have kind of the image in between. The crane connecting the dolphins. The thing I'm a little concerned about, and this is only because I have a weird designer mind, is the train and the dolphin are going to kind of collide, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to end well. But it's just my own bizarre imagination. So, and it's nothing to do with the placement, or I'm sorry, not the placement, nothing to do with the composition overall. All right, so Fun in the Sun. I love this one. I'm totally a person that's into very kind of plain geometric shapes, and it's it's got a good feel to it, kind of just with its overall simplicity. So layered triangles. You can build worlds with them, for sure. And I think it's just working in a very nice kind of simple manner. And I think that's it. Yep, 17. Okay, so we're gonna jump over into Photoshop for just a couple that came in without having JPEGs as well. So no worries. But like I said, if you want to upload a JPEG as well, that's great. So here's the first one. This is kind of playing with Photoshop. I think it has a bit of a blur feature, which is pretty cool. So kind of cool to see everything out of focus, and then the mountain peaks kind of showing through. Interesting. I think this one could have, phrase as well. But so wait, let's turn on the layers so you guys can actually see what's going on in the layers panel. Oh, so cool. Yeah, so this is basically kind of how I was looking at your work when you guys were turning in. So here's another one. Existence is pain. So you can see here, picture, layers, all sorts of stuff coming through. And and I mean, it's working really well. And I like the glowing kind of edge to these as well. All right, here's another one. Again, you can see here, if you open up any of these folders, you see all the different pieces of how the illustrations actually put together. Probably just because I'm a teacher, but this stuff, I'm like, oh, so cool to see. Like, this is how you guys actually made it. And then it makes me feel like, oh, good, they're getting it. They know what they're doing. So kind of cool to see. It's just how you guys are thinking and engaging. This one, admittedly, was a little slightly underwhelming, mostly because it's kind of, I see that there's a picture in a background. What else could we do? I could definitely see some more shapes, some more words, just something that would kind of elevate this beyond just what was already a piece of wallpaper. So, how can you kind of customize it? How can you make it your own? And, maybe it's as simple as just, repeating this a couple times and, playing with something like that. So you can kind of have like multiples. So I just changed the I changed the blending mode to lighten, and that's kind of cool. Maybe you can stack them and rotate. So with design, it's not that you have to like make everything by hand. I don't think that's a necessary thing. But if you're playing with kind of pre-made shapes or illustrations or whatever, really think about how you can take it and customize it and make it your own. So if it's a stock piece, how can you kind of put your own stamp on it and, just do something a little bit kind of fun and unexpected. And it often doesn't take much, but it will have just a whole bunch of impact, because suddenly it goes from being, something that anybody could in fact download to being something that's really kind of unique and somewhat special. So good challenge for sure. Here's another one. You can see wood grain tattoo idea and the word sisters. So kind of cool, kind of fun again. That would be a pretty sweet tattoo, I must say. So here's another one. Exotic fruit or terrifying arachnid. Woo-hoo. I really liked this one because I saw the exotic fruit first, and then I had to look at it for a while and then see the terrifying arachnid. And then once I did, I like couldn't unsee it and then got a little bit freaked out. But yeah, so I mean, really cool to see just how these different layers are working together, and these are all set to overlay. So something really is kind of showing through and kind of sharing, and yeah, that was your idea. Thanks. No. The one thing I will say is just this type feels like it's a little high. So I would actually select it before I tried moving it. But I would actually just bring it down just a little bit. And it's a toughie because once again, the colors are kind of very close to the background. So, how could you position it so that it just isn't as, man, why am I, oh, it's because I'm an auto select. So it isn't, quite as, just so it's a little easier to read, but you still kind of keep the feel. So your idea, draw people in and then scare them. It worked. And then I think, is this mine? Oh yeah, this is mine. Hey, love this one. Yeah. But yeah, so that was kind of an overview of the assignment for assignment 1. So like I said, if your work was shown and you had any comments, you can feel free to enact them, kind of put them in and do a resubmit. The big thing, like I said, I was seeing a lot was more that just people were not saving it in the correct manner, so or just forgetting something. So again, if you want to just update your piece, I would be totally happy to go through and give you more points. I love doing that. So that's no worries at all. So all right. So let's get out of here and get into, I'm going to actually just stop sharing for a second. Get out of here, get into our week 2 so that we can see where we are headed for that. So I'm a little bit curious for the students that are here in person. How are you feeling about Photoshop this week after doing the first kind of first round of things? Do you feel like it's a bit easier? It's still kind of confusing, slightly less confusing than it was before. What's kind of your read? What's kind of your take on things? And I apologize, I'm just opening up something. So if you're like, why is it dark? It won't be for long. Yeah, and if you're watching along via video, what's kind of your take? How are you feeling? Do you feel like, it's not quite as scary as it was before? It is quite as scary as it was before. What are you thinking? Okay, let me get back in and share my screen. You can see where we're headed. Okay, it looks like a little bit easier. I'm a little bit less intimidated. Yep. Yeah, and I think we were saying earlier that, you guys are kind of like learning a new language. I think that kind of the key thing is to just treat this as like baby steps. So you don't have to learn everything about Photoshop all the way right now. And in fact, you will probably never learn everything about Photoshop all the way, just because it's such a complex program. But just, concentrate on, if you can learn like 1 or 2 things a week, that's all you need, and it will just kind of establish a base for you. So this is the first of kind of a 3-course progression of Photoshop. So there's a beginner, there's an intermediate, and there's an advanced. And so this is the beginner one. So you're going to get lots more Photoshop throughout your cycle, kind of throughout the time of you being here. So, you don't have to figure it all out this time. But if you can just like kind of discipline yourself to, just go in and do stuff and try stuff, that will be very good. And the other thing too, we have these school assignments, and that's all well and good. But I would say too, just go on to the good old Google, and just at some point, if you have free time, because I think this is really the best way to just get software skills in you, is just do a search on easy Photoshop tutorials. And then see like 50 great Photoshop tutorials for clever beginners, 20 you never knew could be so easy. So so kind of, just see what's here and see kind of how you can play around a little bit. So we're gonna, I'm gonna teach you like extremely high level stuff, but once you have just a couple, like, how to navigate a little bit, you can do some really cool stuff with, yeah, look at this. What? Like, you can do these really cool things, and they're not, they're not very hard, and they'll just teach you. I love this so much. Let's do this instead of photo editing. No, just kidding. So they'll teach you just how to do these things, and it's really a good, it's just a good way to learn something new and to practice, and guarantee, because graphic design is such a software heavy, kind of technology heavy industry. If you are really good at just listening to what your teachers say and doing it, and that's the extent of your learning, you're going to not be very confident once you get out into the professional world. Whereas if you are good about kind of like watching tutorials, reading tutorials, finding things on the internet, and kind of learning along with it, it will mean that you can always kind of reskill yourself and like update, learn new things, stay inspired, stay creative. So I'm a huge fan of, do what you can in school, for sure, do the assignments and things, but even more, constantly push yourself and say, I like how this looks. I want to figure out how to do it. I want to find resources. I want to, just find ways to skill myself, so that, when you are out of school, you still kind of know, what it is that you're doing. Let's see, I've been watching basic level stuff on YouTube. Yes, yeah, YouTube, it's so good. And like there's lots of really cool, how cool is that? There's lots of really cool stuff to try as well. Oh, excuse me. Oh, unexpected yawn. Okay. All right, so let's get back into here. Okay, so for this assignment for this week, we are going to explore Photoshop's photo retouching abilities. So I was kind of joking at the beginning of the session that, my family always asks me now to kind of retouch all of our family photos, and I gladly do it because I actually really enjoy retouching, and who doesn't sometimes want a nicely retouched photo of their family? But yeah, so we're going to just look at some different images, and I'm gonna do a demo as to how to go about kind of restoring them, retouching them, and then we are also going to learn about some different tools as well in the process. So the important thing to note when we start this assignment is that you only need to do 2 of the photos below. So you don't need to do all 3. You just need to do 2. And I am actually only going to demo the first 2. But if you want to do the 3rd one, that's fine as well. So you're going to take 2 of these photos and retouch them. Well, restore them, I guess. So here's the first one. So we're going to just open them. Oops, I'm sorry. We're going to restore 2 and 3. I always forget which one is there. But okay, so we're just going to download so we can see what all the pictures look like. And like I said, you guys need to choose 2. So this is what all 3 of them are. So kids with dogs and a tear, a cat, or a girl, which apparently I've just lost, but it's okay. Okay, so how you're going to actually get these, is you can do what I just did, which is click on the link and then, oh, there she is. Click on the link and then it's going to download to your downloads folder. So here's let me stop sharing just for 1 second. Oh, that's fine. Just want to make sure my downloads folder was okay. So they're in my downloads folder, so you can see where those are. It says here, right click on it and save it to your desktop. Excuse me, you can do that if you want to, which would be if you're on a PC, which I know many of us are, you could just right click. Or if you're on a Mac, hold down the control key, click, and then do download linked file, and then it'll download it to your desktop. So, excuse me, however you want to is fine with that. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is go into Photoshop. And I did send an email out saying if you don't have Photoshop yet, please let me know. Well, and also if you have Photoshop, please let me know. Mostly because I know we have a couple of you who, for whatever reason, have been trying to, I'm just closing all these, have been trying to get it, but it's just not, it's not working very well. So I want to make sure that we kind of put all of my resources and energy toward you getting Photoshop, so that you can, work and be successful in this course. Okay, so we're in Photoshop. What we're going to do is just go to File and Open. So this one doesn't have the size requirement, so we're just going to open the JPEG. So I'm in this dialog box. We don't want to go to Leslie presentation, but this is something I'm working on professionally. We want to go to Downloads and then find our photo, and we're going to start with this guy and then just click Open. So File, Open. So File, Open up here, then find your file, and then click Open. Okay, so when we first start, actually, I was gonna say, when we first start photo retouching, what do we do? And then I was just thinking, oh no, I was gonna give us a short break before we did this. So apparently when we first start photo retouching, the first thing we do is open our photo and then take a break, which is maybe a good idea. But yeah, so what we're gonna do is probably just take about 5 minutes so you guys can, stand up, stretch, move around, whatever you need to do. And then when we come back, we will dig into photo retouching and kind of all that that entails. So if you're watching via video, there are going to be about 5 minutes of silence. If you are here in person, there will also be 5 minutes of silence. But yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back then. All right, so see you guys in just a little bit. Okay, break time is done. Time to get back into things. Okay, so we talked about how to get these pictures. Now we're going to talk about how to fix these pictures. So first thing when you're doing kind of a piece of photo manipulation or kind of photo retouch or whatever, is just to kind of assess what's going on. And then kind of think about what you will need to change about the picture. So when I look at this cat picture, first thing I notice is that it's a little bit dark. It's got all these kind of weird creases to it. And then I don't know if you guys can see this too, but for whatever reason, the cat apparently just has one eye. And so hopefully it's because the cat is blinking. Hopefully the cat does have an eye. But these are all things that we're going to try to adjust and make a bit better. So let's talk about just how we're going to do that. So as kind of a heads up, in this picture, I'm really actually only going to use kind of three different things in my whole arsenal of Photoshop stuff. So even though it looks like it's going to be a little bit complicated to fix, it actually really shouldn't take all that much in the overall kind of tool power. So the first thing we're going to do is actually nothing to do with tools. It has everything to do with how the photo is kind of constructed itself with our layers panel. So whenever you're doing any sort of like photo retouching or photo manipulation, you never want to do it directly onto the original photo itself. So we said in Photoshop, images are made up of pixels, and the pixels are the reason why we can kind of do manipulations and corrections and things. But once we start manipulating pixels, it's very hard to get them back to their original state. And so we always want to, when we're working, we always want to work on a copy of our picture. So first thing I'm going to do is just take my background layer, click on it, drag it, and create a new layer. So we're going to have a copy. So we always want to work on a copy of the picture, just in case, you know, we happen to do something terrible and we need to get back to the original. We always have that original somewhere. So first step, create your new background copy. And second step is going to be to save. So we're just going to go to File, Save As. And last name underscore assignment 2 underscore 1. Okay. All right, so now we're going to jump into the picture itself. So first thing we're going to do, like I said, is kind of adjust that the darkness level. So it's a little bit on the really black side, probably because of the color of the cat, the windowsill. So how we're going to do that is, again, we're going to go into our layers panel, and we're going to use what's called an adjustment layer. So the adjustment layers are housed in this little guy here. So it looks like kind of like a yin-yang symbol, kind of like a black and white cookie type thing. And so you're just going to click on it and come down here, and you'll see a whole bunch of choices of all different adjustments that you can make. And it's also important to note, just like we made a background copy of our picture, we're actually not going to adjust the pixels. We're going to adjust on a layer. So again, we're not really going to touch the pixels. And if you're like, that makes zero sense, why aren't we touching the pixels? Just kind of watch, and you'll kind of see what's going to happen. So we have, we're looking for exposure. So exposure mimics kind of like a quote unquote real camera as far as how much light gets let in. So we're going to increase exposure just a little. So see, if we did it too much, it would get really white. If we decreased exposure, it would go to black. So we want it to be just a little bit of higher than 0. So maybe we'll do like a +1. So this is 0, it was a little below 0. So just to brighten it just slightly. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do, so you can see here we have our exposure layer is actually over our background layer. So if we make it invisible, we can kind of see what the before looks like. So before, after, just a tiny change, but makes so much of a difference. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a color balance layer on as well. And basically what color balance is, as it says, it balances the colors that are coming into your picture. So this picture doesn't have a lot of kind of reds or greens, but the second picture that we're going to walk through retouching does actually have a lot of that. So it's going to be even more prominent in that one, but we're going to just get a taste of it here. So once again, it's an adjustment layer. So we're going to come down here to our little black and white cookie, click on it, go to color balance right here. And then again, there should be a little properties thing that pops out. And then we want to move this towards cyan just a little bit. And if you go too much, it's going to turn like underwater. If you go too far, it's going to turn red. So we want just like a little hint towards cyan. And the reason that we're doing this is that when you color balance an image, you want to ideally take away any like super kind of dominant color casts that it might have. And the way that you do that, if you remember from color theory or which you will learn in color theory, the way you do that is that you really introduce the opposite color on the spectrum. And so if you have an image that's really red, you need to put in some cyan to kind of balance it. If you have an image that's really green, you put in magenta, really blue, you put in yellow. So anything that kind of just kind of evens out the color overall. So we're going to do it towards cyan. Okay. So go back to our layers panel. So again, we see how it looks before, after, and we've not touched any of our initial pixels. Everything that we've been doing has been happening in the layers. Okay, we're going to just take a quick save. And so when you guys are going about doing these these corrections for the image, you can feel free to basically just copy exactly what I'm doing. And I actually have created a Word document that's going to kind of step by step take you through this. So you can do this again as well. So kind of the heart of this assignment is to just get you comfortable getting in and doing some manipulations for your pictures. So it's not like, oh no, I can't copy Lisa because that's plagiarism or whatever. No, I mean there's kind of like only a few ways that you could probably do this. And so I'm fine if you want to just do my way, because it will just help you kind of get familiar. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new layer, and we're going to start cleaning up the actual picture itself. So we addressed the colors, so now we're going to actually address the content of the picture. So new layer, we come down here to our new layer button. So I'm just going to click that. And then we are going to use what's called the clone stamp. So this is going to be our tool, one of our tools for the assignment. So clone stamp is this guy here. It looks like a little stamper. And basically what the clone stamp tool does is it kind of uses your picture as the ink pad, quote unquote, and it kind of sucks itself into the picture, kind of sucks up the pixels, and then you stamp, and it's just like a regular stamp. It will then put those pixels into a different area. So we are going to use that quite a bit to adjust some of these areas where, like, we have a little scratch here, or we have kind of this weird gray stuff going on. We're going to use it a little bit in the cat. We're going to use it in the curtains. So we're going to use the clone stamp quite a bit. So I'm going to just resize my window and zoom in. Okay, so the way the clone stamp works is that you can see, can you guys see like this outline here? You just confirm if you can or not. Hopefully you can. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, yes, yeah, excellent. Okay, so how the clone stamp works is that it's basically like a brush tip, and so you can make it large and small. So if you want to make it smaller, which when you're working, you're going to kind of keep on switching the size. So when you make it smaller, you're going to do your left bracket. Oops, left bracket, and it should get smaller. And then when you make it larger, right bracket, and it gets bigger. So smaller, larger. Excuse me. And the one other thing you want to keep in mind too is when you use the clone stamp, you want to go to sample all layers. This should be the default, but in case it's not, so just check it when you're working. So you want to sample all the layers. So you don't just want to sample one or two, but everything as you're stamping. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take kind of a sample of our picture in a good spot and then use that good sample to kind of paint where it's not so good. So an example of a good spot would be kind of right where my clone stamp is right now. So this is a dark area, and we want to just put this dark area over this kind of lighter area so that it all kind of feels uniform. So to take our sample, we're going to do an option. So I'm going to hold down my option key, and you'll notice it changes from a circle into like a kind of like a crosshair type thing. So hold down my option and click, and it will have now taken its little its sample, and then we're just going to click, and it's going to cover. And you usually get, let's turn up the opacity a little bit. You usually get about 3 or 4 clicks before it essentially runs out of ink. So you can sample from up here now. And you'll see that I'm just taking a copy of those pixels that were above and around this little area of kind of not so great shine, and just filling them in with something else so they kind of fade to the background. Okay, I want to do the same thing right here. So holding down my option key, clicking once, and then you'll see it kind of is going to hover the pixels over, and then you just click and click. We're going to come over here, same thing. And it's amazing how effective it is. And it does, I mean, it's going to take a little kind of figuring out how it works type thing. But usually if you click instead of dragging, you get a better look overall. So just like lots of little clicks tends to work out better than like if you click and then you decide you want to like drag. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it gets a little not so great. So always you hold down the option key, we click once, it gets a sample, and then we click to fill in whatever's showing up there. So now move it through. Okay, so we're gonna Command plus to kind of zoom out and see what's going on. Looks pretty good. I'm not gonna be like, it doesn't need to be perfect when you guys are kind of putting this together, mostly because I know this is kind of your first pass at all these ideas, but it just has to be a fairly good, a fairly good shot of what's happening here. So I'm going to zoom in again. So clone stamp, everybody feeling like they're kind of on board with, let's move that way, what it is, how it's working, that sort of thing. So one other thing you can, and you guys can feel free to answer in the chat box. One other thing you can think about too is just what the opacity is doing. And so right now I'm at about 82%, and I find that that's a good level. If you go lower, then it tends to get a little, it's a little washed out. It's harder to cover stuff. So lower opacity is just a little bit harder to work with. So I'd try to stay in like the 70 to 90 range. Okay, so make my brush a little bit bigger. Oops. Hold down option, take a sample. We're just going to cover up here. Let's see. For me, there is a little sliver on the side of the picture. It won't stay covered. Huh. A little silver on the side of the picture. That's very odd. Okay, we can, as soon as I finish, Jennifer, maybe as soon as I finish doing this one, then we can just look at you can share your screen and we can just take a quick look, a quick peek. Okay, yeah. Where will the recorded video be after this? It'll be, if you go to live session, live session, and then just scroll down, you'll see the instructor-led recording, and then it should be in there. Instructor-led session, it should be there. Okay, so we could do a little bit more kind of clone stamp on the fur. Sorry, I'm moving screens around because I'm trying to get the chat box as well. So we could do a little bit more clone stamp on the fur. I don't think I'm going to do that now, just because we're going to get to a couple other things. So next thing we're going to do is, so when you guys are working though, clone stamp the fur a little bit more, kind of clean up where you can with this area throughout the cat's face. It's pretty easy. Option click and kind of fill it in, with fur. Just kind of get those little creases out. And then the last thing we're going to do is just get the eye. And so we're going to actually take this eye and copy it on this side. And then we're going to flip it, and then it'll look like it's going to have two eyes. So just kind of stick with me for a sec. So the way we're going to do that is use our rectangle marquee tool. So right here, and we're going to click and hold so that it actually goes to the elliptical marquee tool. So click and hold for the ellipse. Now we're going to copy this guy. And with our background copy selected, Command C, Command V. And you'll see we have a new layer called Layer 2, and this is actually just an eye. A little creepy, I know, but we'll do that one more time. So rectangle marquee, I turned it into an ellipse. Make sure your background copy layer is selected. So click and drag, Command C, copy, Command V, paste, and then move this over. So select your layer 2 and then move it over to here. Okay, so it's not quite the right way because it needs to be flipped. So what we're going to do is come over here to Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal. And there it goes. Cat's eye is almost there. And now what we're going to do is just zoom in. We're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to zoom in, and we want to shrink the eye just slightly. So we're going to do the Show Transform Controls. So click that, and then just bring the eye down just a bit. Looks pretty good. Uncheck that box. Yay! It's a miracle, the cat has an eye again. And then the final step that we're going to do is actually use our eraser tool, which is this one right here. Let's get to the top, this one. And we're just going to erase a little bit of the hardness of the line around the cat's eye, just so it looks like it's a little bit more kind of nested in there. So eraser tool works just like a brush, just like a clone stamp, so you can make it bigger or smaller. And I'm also going to turn the opacity down to about 50%, because what we're really doing is not really erasing anything, just kind of softening the edge. So it looks like it's blending a bit more. So just going to soften that edge a little bit. And you could clone stamp if you wanted to, but I think it's just easier for erasing. And when you zoom back out, does it look pretty good? If it needs to be moved over slightly, just use your move tool. And you can just kind of eyeball, where it should go. Okay. All right, so that's a fairly good, fairly good retouched cat. So just a reminder, the different tools I used were the clone stamp to get rid of most of the imperfections, and then the elliptical marquee to copy the eye and paste it, and then just a little bit of eraser to kind of soften the edges of the eye itself. And then also two different layer styles to just give it just a little bit of a better look and feel overall to the colors. So we are going to save that up and go from there. All right, so I know I said you could share yours when I was done with the cat. Let me do actually, would you mind sharing yours at the end of class? Mostly because I wanna keep us moving to the next touch up. Okay. All right, so the cat, that is the cat. Okay, sounds good. That is the cat. So we're gonna move right along to the next one, which is going to be the children and pets. So again, file open, download this one and open. And this is a great example of something that is exceptionally red in tone. So had we done this one first, color balance would have made a whole lot more sense. But now that we know color balance, we are feeling good. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do, as always, duplicate the background layer just to make sure we don't touch anything we shouldn't. And then save. So file, save as, last name underscore assignment 2 underscore 2 is the second one, and save. Oops. Okay. Okay, so we are going to color balance. So again, this guy, new adjustment layer, and color balance. And we want to kind of take this green. So it was very, very magenta. So we want to go take it the other way so it's green. So it feels a little bit more kind of living. All right, so then we're going to shut that. Everything else feels pretty good. You know, if you want to adjust exposure, play around with that, that's okay. Oh, one thing I did want to say, as you're using these adjustment layers, if you want to go back in and like tweak something, you just have to double click on whatever this icon is. So just double click here and it'll bring back up your properties menu, and then you can go from there. So kind of a cool thing. So double click, see it, and then click on there to close it. Okay, so next thing we're going to do, create a new layer, and we're going to use a new tool for this, and this is the Spot Healing Brush, which is going to be right here. So Spot Healing Brush tool. It looks like a Band-Aid, but it's a brush. So we're going to click on it. Okay, so click on that. And basically what this does, as long as you have Sample All Layers selected, what this does is it kind of knits all the pixels together in a way that really makes for a good kind of feel that feels quite natural. And so we're just gonna make sure Sample All Layers, and then what we're gonna do is just spot heal all of these little things that look kind of like pinpricks. So you might need to click it a couple times to get rid of them. And again, kind of make them, make the brush just about the size of your little things that you want to get rid of. You can even do a little scribble action. It's such magic. It's so wonderful. Okay. And if you accidentally do something you don't like, Command Z, and it works. I kind of scribbled over those when I should have just clicked. Okay, zoom in, get the kid's head. Looks pretty good. Now it's a little bit strange, so we're going to Command Z. Make it a bit smaller. Okay. That works for me. Okay, so so spot healing brush, kind of go through and kind of get rid of the little tend to tears, imperfections. Next thing, we are going to address this large tear in the photo. And so what we're going to do is create a new layer and then use the clone stamp again. If you're wondering why the new layer, so look at this is the new layer that we did all the spot healing brush. If we were to turn it off, you would see that the initial pixels are all still intact, which is kind of a kind of a wild thing. So I was just reading something in the chat box about a little troubleshooting. Seems like it's a good thing. Okay, so we're going to create a new layer. And then we're going to use our good old friend, the clone stamp. And what we're going to try to do is just recreate kind of what's going on, or what could go on here where this tear is. Kind of the nice thing about where the tear is located is its background. So, I mean, these kids are kind of the main event. So we don't have to like completely figure out what's going on here. We can kind of just construct it ourselves. We can be designers, kind of make up what could go there. So what I'm doing is just using my clone stamp and getting a sample of this tree, and I'm just kind of painting it in. And then I'm going to grab some samples of this like fence type thing, and I'm going to paint it in as well. I'm going to grab, make my brush smaller, grab this one, kind of paint this in. So again, always, always, always click Option to fill, and then paint in the zone to kind of get it. Let's see if we can get this kind of. This is where you kind of get to use your imagination. You know, what do you think should fill into this space? And really, it doesn't matter. It just matters that the tear is gone. So you want to kind of. It looks like there might have been an unfixed something I should have done the spot healing brush on, because I feel like I'm kind of replicating that little tear. So learn from my mistakes and spot heal before you clone stamp. So yeah, so with the, and let's get that spot heal so we can just, that little guy gone. So with this, like I said, you know, it doesn't really matter what you fill, well, it matters what you fill it in with, but it just more matters that it kind of can fade to the background. And so once you've done something that feels pretty good, I would recommend just going over it with the spot healing brush just a little to kind of just give it a little, one more kind of just fade. So the spot healing brush is great at just kind of mixing things. So kind of mixing the pixels and such. Oh, and I have a feeling my Photoshop is not so happy, so we'll just let it catch up a bit. Okay, so once you are there, you are pretty, yeah, you're pretty good to go. So do you guys have any questions? My Photoshop, unfortunately, has decided to, there it is. Is it back? Yes, it came back. It's decided not to perform. But yeah, so do you guys have any questions overall? So for this one, again, we did color balance. Then we created some new layers. We did the spot healing brush, which is like this little Band-Aid. And then we did the clone stamp. So, and then we can turn off these layers. This is how it looked before. Oh, before to after. Pretty amazing. Okay. So a couple things to keep in mind with both of these photos, or even the third one if you choose to do that. Just make sure that you're saving quite a bit, because Photoshop tends to get a little bit unstable, and if it crashes, there's a chance you could lose what you did. So just get into the habit of every couple minutes, just like file save, so you always make sure that you have it at the end. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Maybe find me in the multi-session, because it's a little tricky, and things kind of make sense, and then don't really make sense. So kind of keep me posted. Okay, so last thing that we are going to cover is how to do the assessment for this week, which is type on a path. And if you're thinking like, we have no time to talk about this, no, it's actually quite easy, so you should be good. Okay, so for this assignment, you will create a text on a path design. Begin by bringing a digital image into Photoshop. Use the font features to create an interesting project. You may use photographs and text for this assignment. You will use photographs and text, I should say. Okay, so basically what you're doing for this is you are taking a photo and then finding some interesting way to put some type on it in a way that's not just like a line of text. It's something a little bit more kind of fun and engaging. So first thing we're going to do is find a picture, and just like with the other pixels.com, just like with the other project, you can get a picture from wherever you want to. Doesn't really matter. Kind of the important thing is using the tools in Photoshop. So I'm going to look up for a sunrise. So kind of just like think of what you could write. Think of what you want to do. I'm actually thinking it would be really cool to write "Good morning, sunshine." So that's what I'm going for. So I'm going to click on this one, and then free download. Looks good. So I'm just going to do a control click. Save image as. Oops. Oh dear, that's not going to work. Save image as on my desktop. That will work. So I can find it later. Okay, so we're going to look through here. Just a couple of requirements are 5x7 and JPEG. So we're going to come back to Photoshop and do a new document. So File, New, and make sure we're in inches. So I'm going to do 7 inches by 5 inches, and you can do really whatever you want to for that. If you want, horizontal or vertical, either one. And then I'm going to do File and Open. And so I just need to find the picture that I just downloaded. So I did mine on my desktop so I can find it easily. And then click Open. And then this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky. So you'll see all of your open documents are in tabs at the top of your screen. So what you're going to do is just grab this one and kind of put it so that they're right next to each other. So kind of grab your tab and then pull on it so you free up your window. And then just click on your picture and drag it into your into your blank documents. Then you might need to resize. So remember, show transform controls, and then kind of just make it smaller as you need to. And remember, you're always going to hold down Shift as well so that you don't accidentally distort your picture. Oops. And then click your check mark to commit your change. Okay, so however you happen to get your picture in, it doesn't really matter, just matters that it's eventually 5x7 in here. Okay, so how Type on a Path works is basically that you draw a line, you draw a path, so to speak, and then you use your type tool to kind of fill it with something. So I'm going to take my brush to just draw a path, and I'm going to get my layers here, and oops, wait, okay, are you guys still with me? I feel like I stopped sharing and things got a little bit crazy. Not quite sure what happened. Odd. Okay, so here we are again. So I'm going to draw my path, and basically how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use one of my shape tools. And so it's actually going to give some, so you could use a line tool, a polygon, ellipse, whatever. You need Photoshop to kind of draw a path for you, and then you can have type that's going to kind of come and fill that. So I'm going to use my circle and move that around, and then zoom in, and then use my type tool. And you'll notice that when you guys probably can't see this because it's a little small, but when your type tool is just regular, it's kind of like a vertical line in a little box. And then when you hover over a shape, it kind of transforms from a circle to like a little shape over it. So when you see that, you just click, and then you can start typing in a shape. So I'm going to type good morning, sunshine. And I'm going to put some, I think I spelled that wrong. S-U-N-S-H-I-N-E. Okay, that's how you do it. Oops. Okay. Not very complicated, but it just looked complicated. So the cool thing is that now you have this type that is separate from the shape itself, but it's still in the shape. So you can either turn off the shape if you want to and still have the type, or you can keep the shape there. It doesn't really matter. But then you can play with your type just by double clicking the T, and I'm going to make my type a slightly different color. Maybe this pinkish color would be, oh no, that actually wouldn't work. Well, actually it would work for half of it. Good morning, and then we'll have sunshine. Oh, it's so cute. Okay, so you can see you can kind of just like maneuver it around and things. If you want to further kind of work with your type, you can go to open up your character panel, and this actually looks like this thing here. So this will allow you to just kind of change up the size, just work with your type in a little bit more of a focused way than just this little text box at the top allows you to do. So I had lots of space in between my type, and I wasn't really sure why. So I don't know why I was checking that out. Yes, you can kind of play with the sizing. You can change up your font if you want to. We can make it a little bit smaller. Kind of see what's happening. So yeah, so this assignment, or this assessment rather, basically picture picture word, or picture path word. Happy, oops, it's going the wrong way. So it doesn't, it's however you want to, I won't talk and do things at the same time. It's kind of however you want to construct it. And I'm great with anything you guys want to do. The only thing I'm not great with is if you just here, let's cover that up and just write hello or something. If you just have one word that's like just a piece of type in your image, it's not really that exciting. So I want to see you just use your shape capability, or use, if you want to do warping or whatever, just do something interesting with your type that's kind of a non-standard treatment. So this is a standard treatment. How can you go kind of non-standard in what you're putting together? So that's basically what I want to see. And then here it does say for both this and the other, for the assignment and the assessment, that you're going to save them as a JPEG. I would actually love it if you could, I won't take points off, but I would love it if you could do both a PSD and a JPEG, mostly so that I could see kind of how you guys are working, kind of how you're thinking, and see if, if I could help in any way, or, just kind of how you're putting these things together. So, excuse me, when you save, you're just going to go to File, Save As, and kind of just as we did before, last name, assessment 2. So format was .psd. I did that really quickly, so I'll slow it down this time. So format.psd. So also, or for the second one, format JPEG, save, okay, and then you can put that up as well. Okay, so I think that is kind of that. I think we've lost quite a few students in the process, but it's a-okay. So hopefully if you are watching via video, or if you're here, this is kind of, the week that looked like it was a ton of work, but hopefully it's a little bit, you're kind of feeling like it's not as overwhelming as it could be. So with these pictures especially, just, do your best. They don't have to be perfect. What I'm really looking for is just that they are better than when you started. So if you take the picture and it's actually worse than when you started, that's not a good thing. But better than when you started, and it should be a good thing. But otherwise, feel free to, let me know if you have any issues downloading, fixing, manipulating, anything like that. And otherwise have fun doing it. All right, well guys, thanks for another great week of class. And as usual, if you have any questions about things, just keep me posted. And like I said too, multi-session happening Thursday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Several of you did take advantage of it, which was great. So it would be great if any more of you could come as well. That would be quite nice. Oh, and the other thing too, if you still have Adobe issues, please contact me sooner than later, so we can kind of walk through one-to-one, and I can hopefully get those sorted out for you. All right. Well, otherwise, thanks, guys, and best. Good luck. Good luck in the project world, working things out. Okay. Have a great day, everybody. All right. Bye.